Hindutva conference positioned on September 10, 11, and 12. Very with a lot of significance, the choice of the dates. But I think the response of the American Hindu community and the way the community has banded together in exposing the organizers of the event across America, it is worth looking at, and it's something that we should be, we should be looking into, and probably we'll be analyzing that today, because what it has done is that it has essentially put uh, a whole new dimension to the people who were organizing it, and it has exposed them far more than it has exposed us, which was their intent to begin with. So, they were trying to dismantle Hindutva, but I think they have just started the process of dismantling the really toxic alliance between the violent extreme left, the radical Islamists, and the people who are behind them.
So that I want to just say that for some reason the we I just saw that people started joining now. So I want to tell people that we are on Hindu Launch number 69 with Utsada is Utsav Chakrabarti and I'm Ajay Shah, and we are talking about the dismantling global Hindutva conference. And now we are actually we're talking about the fact that the organizers are now beginning to realize that Hindutva is winning, and also that there are a lot of indications that Hindutva is winning. And I'll walk you through a few things which will indicate you that Hindutva is winning. So that I want to first I want to say that, look, I mean, it started out by we started out by saying they with the conference, which was supposedly sponsored by 45 different universities with all their logos and everything else. And now you see that all the logos from their website are gone. And you can see that several of the universities have said they have nothing to do with this particular conference. There might be a particular faculty member or a particular department or an institute within that was promoting it, and the universities have started to disassociate themselves from this conference. The other thing also that I have seen, that it is unprecedented amount of outpour of support from all the Hindus across America. And so that, I mean, we uh, have now got about uh, uh, you know 170,000 signatures that were sent out on our side, right? So we have been starting to send out the signatures to all the universities. I know some of the other organizations have done it. Some of them have gotten hundreds of thousands of signatures. So unprecedented amount of outpouring of support from across the world for all the Hindu people who understand, people who are practicing Hindus and who understand that Hindutva is in really the essence of Hindu Dharma. So that I think you changed the video setting. So yeah, please keep it on that one. So
Yeah.
that is perfect. So that is the first indication of support. That, look, across America, the mandirs are signing up the petitions, the Hindu organizations are signing, individuals are signing, and faculty members are signing. So really, now there is an outpouring of support for people who are who really know what is Hindutva, and who are supporters of various Hindutva based organizations in America, which is all the Hindu organizations in America. So that we uh, that is the first indication. The second indication is that the organizers of the conference really have to now go an extra step, right? They have to go extra step in the sense that they did not anticipate this uh, avalanche of opposition that they are facing. So now they have to go and get congressional hearings, and they have to do all the other things that they never anticipated doing. They still, they release
What?
the. So yeah,
Wait.
please go ahead.
They don't have the ability to do a congressional hearing. So, what they are trying to do is to organize an online forum, just like what we are doing now, slapping a picture of Capitol Hill on the back of their flyer and calling it a congressional briefing. Okay, so we have to understand that our community gets so riled up about this, you know, this whole idea of congressional hearing. They don't have the ability to do congressional hearing. If they had the ability to do a congressional hearing, then they won't be scrapping around different university campuses, gathering all these extreme leftist and Islamist professors to, put together, slap together an event and make it do it on September 11th. Nobody takes them seriously. The only problem that they have created is that they are preaching pure, unadulterated hatred against Hindus, which could lead to violent crimes against Hindu students and Indian American students who are coming here as immigrants. Already face a lot of discrimination. So the outrage against these people is not because of their ability to produce anything substantial. The outrage is because the narrative that they are creating can lead to hate crimes by ignorant people. And that is it in itself a problem. And that is what the Hindu American community, is really upset about. Because in this environment of divisive politics across America, these people are trying to utilize the divisiveness of the American society to create hate crimes against Hindus. There is no better way to judge that. And a very good example of that we will be showing at the end of our show today during our Hindu Hater of the Week. You will see what I am talking about.
Yeah, and also it is it's kind of interesting because the kind of topics that they have picked for the conference really speak to the if you really analyze the kind of topics that they are talking about, you will know that their real agenda is to be to be against the is really to tear down the global Hindu dharma and in every aspect of Hindu dharma. So the I want to set the stage and go over the topics that they are talking about, but I want to first level set and have you talk a little bit about what is Hindutva before we delve into, because that will set the stage of the kind of topics that they're talking about. Because their topics range from what is global Hindutva to Hinduism and Hindutva and healthcare and Hindutva and all of that. So I'll display the topics, but why don't you set the stage and talk to us about just so that people who are joining new they also understand what we mean by Hindutva.
So, Ajay, I think we had a very good graphics presentation on what is Hindutva, and I think, because I'm not using my own laptop, so I am completely at a loss
Would
of.
you like me to show the graphic? I have it ready to go. I
Please,
just
please
have to
do.
ask.
So what we will do, Ajay, is please show the graphics of what Hindutva actually means, and then
Okay.
walk back into history and touch upon the Hindutva that Veer Savarkar talked about, because that is a favorite topic for the dismantle folks, and they like to talk about it a lot. So we will talk about it, and then we will come back and revisit this whole conference and the different topics under this conference, and actually we will try to expose the narrative that the other side is trying to create, and actually show why it backfired on them.
All right. So this is our this is the infographic that we created, and this is what our definition of global Hindutva really is. Hindutva is Hindu plus Tattva. Hindu Dharma, as everyone knows, is based on certain core guiding principles, uh, and those are the universal principles that bring people together. And I don't need to read this entire thing, but people can see it, they can read it. It is really built around, uh, acceptance of good thoughts that come from everyone, everywhere. It is acceptance that there can be multiple ways of worshipping. And the tattva means thatness or principle or reality. So there are a lot of people, instead of using the word Hinduism, which is a closed book definition of how to reach a particular, a particular path rather to reach God, a lot of people would use a word Hindutva to indicate Hindu Dharma or Hindu-ness or Hindu way of life, Hindu Sanskriti or Hindu culture. So that is what Hindutva really is. Okay. And the Supreme Court of India accepted that definition. They said that the ordinarily Hindutva is understood as a way or state of life, a way of life or a state of mind. It is not to be equated with or understood as religious Hindu fundamentalism. Okay, that is the definition given by the Supreme Court of India. That is the only legal definition that is out there. And anyone who tries to say that, well, we are talking about Hindutva and not Hinduism or Hindu Dharma, they are just trying to use Hindutva as a proxy to attack Hindu Dharma. Okay.
Not just
Should be
that,
clear to everyone.
I want to add further, Ajay Bhai, that many of these post-colonial violent extremists from the left side love to use the word Hinduism because that's the colonial definition of how Hindutva or Hinduness was looked at. So it's very similar to how in the colonial period Islam was called Muhammadanism. We will never use that word being used today, Muhammadanism. But during the colonial periods, that's the word that was used. People who are followers of Muhammad. And that was a colonial definition of how Islam was portrayed. But these people will never use the word Mohammedanism for followers of Islam because then, they will put their tails on fire and they might not even get a paycheck. Uh, but they love to use the word Hinduism, similar to Mohammedanism, which is a colonial term, and that is why they keep repeating it and try to put it in contrast with Hindutva. So many of these people, I mean, I won't talk about why the Islamists do it. The Islamists have far more serious agenda than just semantics. Similarly, the white supremacists or right-wing Christian groups, they have a far more sinister agenda than just the semantics. But the mainstream left that often ends up becoming the useful idiots of these other two forces who try to oppose, Hindutva, usually try to put Hinduism versus Hindutva because they really want to promote that colonial narrative, which is how they describe Hindu Dharma, which is Hinduism.
Absolutely. Um, someone has asked that we need a wall of shame of all such folks who are organizing the conference. And I was just typing into our chat that uh, we did actually two shows uh, exposing the people who are behind this particular conference, and we have named them. We have exposed them. We have exposed their inner connections. We'll talk a little bit about that again today. So Utsada Hindutva is also universal, and I'll stop there because this is something that we have already discussed. And so that I will go to the first slide that you had. I want to first show the agenda of these people who are trying to, they have now released their agenda. Right, at one point they had not released the agenda. They were kind of, uh, you know, they had said that they will release the agenda closer to the date because they didn't want people to be making negative comments on their agenda. So now we have their agenda. So here is their agenda, Utsada. Uh, okay. So the agenda of the conference: what is global Hindutva? Um, Political economy of Hindutva, caste and Hindutva, gender and sexual politics of Hindutva, contours of a nation. Okay. Now see how cleverly they have put contours of a nation. Now these are the people, and we have exposed them. A lot of them have to do with Pakistan. These are the people who never bothered with the contours of a nation, and they established uh, you know a, a religion-based country for the first time in the world. And now they're talking about contours of a nation.
So,
Hindutva and
so, so
healthcare.
this is the interesting part. This I will stop you here.
We'll deconstruct all of them. We'll deconstruct every one of them. But go ahead, please.
No, I specifically wanted to talk about the contours of the nation heading, which is the fifth topic here. The reason they are specifically focusing on that is because even though Many of the participants here and many of the organizers here are not Indian. Many of them are Pakistani, have deep connections with the Pakistani state and its military intelligence apparatus. They make it sound like it is about only about India and it's only the Indians who are talking about their own country. And that is what people have to be very careful about. It is it is this nature of this event where there are strong foreign interests. And as Ajay noted, people who are watching this show, please go and watch our previous two shows, because in those two shows we have exposed quite a few of these people with their connections, not nothing to do with India or Hindus. So it is this extra geographical, extra national entities playing a role in this event that somehow makes this event more toxic, not just for Hindus, but also for the state of India, nation of India, every Indian, including people who are not Hindus in India. They have to understand this. Carry on, Ajay. We just touched upon the roots of the nation topic.
Yeah, and I just want to, I was, we'll come to that in more detail, but here we are talking about, for those who understand, we're talking about the Tukre gang. But we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. And so the great thing about our audience is that we have probably the smartest audience and most savvy Hindu audience anywhere in the world. So people who are listening to this show already understand, already know these things. And this is just to uh, just to give extra details to people who are listening, because people who are listening to the show have so much depth. In fact, a lot of times, so that we talk to them and we learn, when we talk to them offline, we learn from people who are in this audience. So I want to just take a moment to acknowledge that and thank them for educating us most of the time. So thank you everyone. I want to continue on this, the agenda here. The next is Hindutva and healthcare. Now, Utsada, and we'll go over this a little bit more, but I sense an attack on yoga, meditation, Ayurveda here. But we'll come to this. And then the next is Hinduism and Hindutva, which is the proxy that they have, red herring that they have created so that they can, uh, without any fear of repercussion, attack Hindus. And the last one is, note this, Islamophobia, white supremacy, and Hindutva. The conference that is organized on September 11th, no less, on 9/11, is not talking about the Islamic fundamentalism. They're not talking about Islamic militancy. They're not talking about Islamic terrorism. They're talking about Islamophobia, white supremacy, and Hindutva. Who do they think they are fooling here? Do they really think that the rest of the world is stupid or what?
No, so they
Also,
are trying.
before we go forward, can I just play a music clip on this? Okay, I had to get this out of my system. Now go ahead.
Okay. Uh, yeah, well, you kind of described everything about this by just playing the music, so we have nothing more to say on that particular issue. uh, I think this is a copybook case, a textbook case of how propaganda works. Goebbels, the Nazi ideologue, spokesperson for Nazi Germany, information minister for Hitler, once famously said, "You repeat a lie 1,000 times, it will eventually become a truth." No better example of that than the people who are organizing this Hindutva conference. So they will they will keep repeating it again and again, because there are just about enough people. So even if they can convince 2 out of 100 people, and those 2 people are not in our audience, those 2 people are probably young Hindu Americans growing up in America who probably are not as much conversant with the realities on the ground or realities of what's happening in the world. They are just targeting those 2 people because those are the people that they think they can they can wean away. And they are the reason they do this is because they want to plug their own narratives within the larger American political narratives. So, what are the words that are catchwords for liberals in America? Islamophobia, a very popular catchword. White supremacism. This particular current government in Washington D.C. loves to talk about it because it's connected to its own electoral politics. What do these propagandists from dismantle Hindutva event want to do? They want to connect Hindutva to these catchwords in the American mainstream politics that are looked down upon in a very negative way, especially in urban educated audiences, and tag Hindutva with it. So by association, they are essentially dismantling Hindutva and taking it down to the level of white supremacism or something else.
So that we will before we come to that, let's you had you were going to start with systematically deconstructing their agenda. So let's start with the first agenda item, and which which basically, let's start with in number 8 here, which is Hinduism and Hindutva. So both terms are interesting, because Hindutva is Hindu dharma, it is Hindu-ness, and loosely translated, it is Hinduism. But why? Tell me, one of the Hindutva as a term was first used in 1890s. Okay, 1890s, and then
So
Savarkar used it.
let me say something here.
Yeah.
To stay on that slide, okay? The the word Hindutva appears in modern context. I'm using the word modern context very carefully here because it may have been used even earlier. But in modern English, literature, English based narratives that are out there, it first appears in the 1800s. Okay, and then, but these guys don't like to talk about that. They don't like to talk about Hindutva that appeared from Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, because then they fall in the trap of Indian national patriotic anti-colonial movement. They don't want to talk about it because then the Hindutva will directly become an anti-colonial word. And these people hate that aspect of Hindutva because they know that if Hindutva comes out as the underdog that was fighting against colonialism, then their whole storyline falls apart. So they jump on to the definition of Hindutva by Veer Savarkar. And that's why it is important that we also talk about it and dismantle their narrative on the definition of Hindutva as Veer Savarkar put it. So here is a quote that you see on the screen that Veer Savarkar wrote in about Hindutva. And this actually best describes his notion of Hindutva as he understood it. It says, after all that is throughout the world so far, as man is concerned by a single race, the human race, kept alive by one common blood, the human blood. All other talk is at best provincial and makeshift and only relatively true. Nature is constantly trying to overthrow the artificial barriers you raise between race and race. So you have to understand that to Savarkar, the concept of Hindutva was about one humanity, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, not any different from that. It was about one shared human existence, and that's how he calls it the human blood. Blood. Humanitarians around the world always use this term that every human has the same blood. We are all humans. That's where Savarkar approached Hindutva, and he also goes on to say that everything else that divides humanity is temporary, makeshift, as he calls it, and provisional. It is not something that lasts. It's only a stopgap and only relatively true. So every other aspect of human division he talks about is relatively true. It's true from one human being who form a smaller group and may not be true for him, another human being who small another smaller group. And he also adds that nature is constantly trying to change this and remove these artificial barriers that exists between humans. So Savarkar, when he writes about Hindutva, he starts with this description of the human race of being one. Now, contrast that with what all these topics that demolishing, dismantling Hindutva people will talk about. And they will mention Savarkar because they love to talk about Savarkar. They will never mention that this is how Savarkar looked at humanity. So I just wanted to bring this quote from Savarkar himself and his writings about Hindutva first, because anything that you read about Savarkar, real or propaganda or whatever, you have to look at it through the prism of this particular quote, which appears in his writing in the beginning itself, where he doesn't see humanity as being divided by anything else except one human condition, which is the shared history, shared life. And he supports that, nature supports that. He proposes that part. So let's continue. I just wanted to bring this because nobody talks about Savarkar at all. And these people love to talk about Savarkar. So I just wanted to bring them and bring
So
this.
so the let's talk about it. Let's cover the agenda first, and in whichever way. I mean, so the who is behind that? We have been pointing out people who are behind it, right? And we said that these are the people who are the so these are the people. Sorry, I lost the train of my thought here.
No, no. So Ajay bhai, they
But the
first
two
start.
aspects. Sorry, I wanted to cover two aspects here. So one, what we want to talk about Utsoda is that there are look at the agenda, okay, and when we look at the agenda in the previous slide, and we say, okay, these are the agenda topic, and then we take the people who are behind it, and it becomes crystal clear as to why they want to attack Hindu Dharma. So let's take. I want to take one thing, Utsoda, in that is I want to, and this is in no particular order, right? So let's talk about one thing. Let's talk about the global Hindutva, and who would be against global Hindutva also. When we talk about global Hindutva, we mean that we Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We mean that people who believe, people who live in different parts of the world, all creation of God, they all are one family. Now, who is against that concept? If you start thinking about who is against that concept, the people who say that, okay, only people who follow a particular book, obviously they are against it. We find people who want to have a particular political system, and say, for example, the left wing extremists, through violence, they want to bring about revolution and erase the boundaries. Or there are people who say that the entire world is one Ummah and they want to erase the boundaries. Hindus don't say we want to erase the boundaries. We say entire universe is one family. When we have entire universe as one family, there is no forced removal of boundaries.
No, no, no. See, Ajay bhai, there you don't need boundaries in this particular case. See, what the other side wants to project, they want to project a condition of fear. And the fear is that global Hindutva is going to partner with toxic uh, global organizations and global groups that have a position of hatred. And and then they don't say who those people are going to be. They will just leave it at that. And that's the fear they're trying to develop in the societies where they are promoting this propaganda. My question to everybody is that let's look at the people these people say Hindutva folks will partner with. Will Hindutva people partner with radical Islamists? Will Hindutva people partner with Christian white supremacists? Will Hindutva people partner with extreme violent left? The three main global entities that have a track record of violence, subversion, and social degradation using violence. All these people that the other side creates this bogey of that Hindutva may partner with are actually on the other side. They are the people organizing this dismantling Hindutva event. So that's the part we need to highlight and show that if you objectively look at where we are standing right now, who are the people opposing Hindutva? And that's where Ajay bhai, I think your next slide fits in. That let's look at the people who are opposing Hindutva and let's analyze what threat they represent and compare it to the threat that Hindutva represents.
So let me share the next slide. So if you look at the people who are lined up against us in the and organizing this particular conference, I'll put this in the bottom so the slides are bigger. There you go.
I'm
They're the
unable to see the slides on the Restream Studio, so I have to look at the
No,
live broadcast
that's
on.
all right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all right. So they're the Islamic fundamentalist, the racist colonial apologist, the Christian conversion industry, and we are not blaming all the Christians here, right? We are talking about people who are committed to conversion, the Marxist-Leninist, the Khalistani specialist, the
separate.
Kashmiri terrorist, and the Pakistani ISI. Now,
Yeah, the
these are the
Khalistan
people.
separatists, not specialists, Ajay. They're separatists.
Oh, separatists. I'm sorry. There's a specialist separatist. The
Yeah, their
Khalistani
speciality is separatism, but they're not specialists. They're the only thing they're
is
special at is getting drunk and abusing other people.
that's right. So that these are the people who are lined up again, who are organizing the conference. Now, do you see a common thread here? What is a common thread? Why do they? So obviously, the Islamic fundamentalists don't want ideology anything any other than, if you want to look at the Islamic fundamentalists, all you have to look at is what is happening in Afghanistan, and why are the women in Afghanistan out protesting at the risk of their own lives, and why are the people why were tens of thousands of people gathered at the Kabul airport trying to hang on to the flying aircraft? you know but even the people who are practicing Muslims, what they think about the Islamic fundamentalists, if everything, and the fact that they did not seek asylum in Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or Qatar or any other place, but they were seeking asylums in United States and Europe and India, shows that the ordinary Muslims themselves, even though in the Pew Research survey they all said 99% of them in Afghanistan said they wanted the Sharia law, when it actually time came to follow the Sharia law, they all wanted to escape Afghanistan. So that is Islamic fundamentalism, and they want to, the most radical of them are now ruling various parts of Africa, and these are the people who are Boko Harams and the Al Qaeda and the ISIS and all the other organizations. Ask Yazidis what Islamic fundamentalism means, and they will tell you. Okay, the racist
Or just
colonial
ask people from
apologists,
the.
these are the people who are the Romila Thapar kind of people. Their history in their eyes is based on the colonial history of India, and that colonial history of India is not just the British colonialism. It starts way before that in the history of India. It starts from Islamic invasion of India or even before that, and they only look at the history of India and the kingdoms that existed in India in context of these foreign invasions, and they try to find a way to justify the foreign invasions, and they try to say that, well, but the British built the railroad. Yeah, but at what cost? How many millions of people died in the famine in West Bengal, or sorry, not West Bengal, in Bengal rather, when under the hands of colonialists? How many 80 million people so that died under the Islamic colonialism of India. So
So Ajay,
and
the
still
irony here is that
the also,
even
I
though
just want to finish one thing. People like Audrey Truskey will say that, but look, Aurangzeb, I am a qualified, trained historian. I can tell you that Aurangzeb was the greatest king that ruled India. All right, over to you.
so what happens, Ajay bhai, is that many of these people are students and professors of a, a line called post-colonial history of South Asia. So the irony here is that they actually promote colonialism and the colonial history of the subcontinent under the banner of post-colonial historical analysis. And that's really ironic, because you would assume that these historians would be revisiting history and deconstructing the colonial history and trying to set it right. But instead of that, they promote it. And anything that stands up historically to that subjugation period of the Indian subcontinent when colonialism was at its peak, beginning from ninth century onwards. they would shoot you down. They will never want to talk about it, because it somehow it somehow gives them a weaker position to promote their narrative. And that's the part I think they, one of our weaknesses as Hindutva communities, and this is because we are a subaltern community, we don't have access to higher education institutions or higher academia, where we have been completely shut out. So in that way, intellectually, we are a subaltern community. And one of our efforts as a subaltern community should be to challenge and raise scholarship and actually deconstruct the post-colonial South Asian narrative builders and analyze what do they benefit from promoting this colonial history of the Indian subcontinent. Why is it that they will not talk about the native Hindu societies that ensured that despite 400 to 800 years, depending on which geographical part of the subcontinent you want to focus on, despite 400 to 800 years of colonialism, the subcontinent managed to preserve and come out alive from its brutal colonial history and still survive as an ancient Hindu civilization. That's the academic discourse we have to get to. And it will be a challenge for us. But that's the part I
So
wanted to.
I'll tell you why they're afraid. I'll tell you why they're afraid. Okay, they're afraid because the Hindutva philosophy has advocated for democracy as far as it existed. There are 9 references to democracy in Rigveda. 9 references of people running a republic type government in Rigveda. Okay, this concept of everyone having a say and everyone having an equal say in running a government, a democracy, a true democracy, is not new to Hindus. And people who are the colonialist, people who are the Marxist Leninists, people whose theology, whose way of governing is based on theology such as Sharia law or Islamic fundamentalism, are not followers of democracy. I want to read you this one quote, Utsada. This is from Sri Aurobindo. And Sri Aurobindo says that it has been said that democracy, and I'll bring it here so I can look at it right in front of me. It has been said that democracy is based on the rights of a man. It has been replied that it should rather take its stand on the duties of man. Both rights and duties are European ideas. Dharma, the Indian conception, which is rights and duties, lose their artificial antagonism created by a view of the world which makes selfishness the root of action and regain the deep and eternal unity. Dharma is the basis of democracy, which Asia must recognize, the world should recognize rather. He was talking in context of Asia. For in this lies the distinction between the soul of Asia and the soul of Europe. So now you know why European colonialists don't particularly like Hindu Dharma or Hinduness or Hindutva, because this is what we stand for: democracy. And that is when they start talking about global Hindutva, what they're really afraid of. In that is why they have to have a whole session on this with people who are supposedly scholars and teachers at the universities and all that, is because they want to deconstruct and dismantle this core idea of democracy that originated in Rigveda, in Hindu Dharma. That is why they have to talk about the global Hindutva. They have to talk about the political economy of Hindutva, because they are averse to the idea as expressed in various Hindu philosophies, but also propagated in 1950s in Ekatma Manavad, where it says that people who are producers and people who are consumers don't have to be antagonistic to one another. They can sit together. The labor unions don't have to be against the people who are owning the manufacturing plants. They can sit together and work things out in a much more efficient. They don't have to be antagonists. They can all be working towards the same goal.
Correct.
And
So
the
Ajay, bhai, let me stop you here for a minute.
yes,
Uh,
please.
so you are thinking too hard and too far. In the other side doesn't hasn't read any of this. They don't care about any of this. They their problem is that Hindutva brings about an in particularly on the economic aspect. Their problem is that Hindutva brings about an economic model that is not based on conflict, but based on mutual respect and partnership. and that is their problem. Look, you can quote Rig Veda, you can, I don't think any of them even read the Rig Veda, or any they don't care about any of these
Not
things.
even the trained historians.
It's They are, the trained historians are mostly propagandists, okay.
And these are the people who are running the history, religious studies department with Sada. You got to give
I
some credit
remember
to
one
them,
story
right?
from when Romila Thapar came in University of Maryland. This was long ago, maybe 15 years ago or so. She was speaking at there. She she doesn't even know basic historical, you know, historical data, and she refuses to accept even radiocarbon dating as a scientific method. Okay, so these are the people who, they lived in a cocoon of, you scratch my back, I scratch your back. That's why they are so afraid. That's why any challenge, even from non-trained historians, as they call it, any challenge that comes with evidence in front of them, they try to brand it as, sanghi or bhakt or whatever, and then if these guys really wanted to have a conference, they could have invited somebody from the Hindutva side and given them some platform and see how they would have stood up to the rigor of academia. I can assure you, 20 people from the other side cannot stand up to one scholar on the Hindutva side, because it takes a lot more to do propaganda than tell the truth. But anyway, coming back to our topic about the economic, how why they are so threatened by the economic challenge that Hindutva proposes to them. See, their worldview is based on constant conflict, whether it is the Islamist or whether it is the violent leftist. Both thrive on chaos and struggle. Both aim to bring revolution. One wants to bring a theocratic revolution, the other wants to bring a economic and political revolution. So in some ways, they both aim for social unrest as a tool to topple existing power structures and gain power. So any, history is not never going to be constant, right? History has its ups and downs. History will have its epidemics. History will have its famines. History will have its geographical tragedies, the earthquakes. And so they wait for these tragedies, for these human miseries to come up, so that they can pounce on the dissatisfaction of the people to promote their own agenda. That's how Islamism has thrived historically. That's how Marxism thrives historically. But Marxism is a it has a very short history, and it has failed within that short history very profoundly. But the challenge they feel from Hindutva is that Hindutva model is not a, you know turning the hourglass model. It's a progressively cooperative model that takes longer to achieve its goals, but has a far more peaceful, far more healthier economic outcome. And it is based on sustainability, because that's a term that people love to use today. Hindutva models are sustainable models, uh, except for the military threat that it faces, physical threats that it faces. The Islamist model, or the violent extreme left model, is a model of subversion. It's a model of tearing apart existing things. And that's why they challenge Hindutva. They cannot accept the fact that some model that can be progressive, at the same time non conflicting in nature, can come into existence, because it poses a direct challenge to them.
Uh, so that I want to take the next two agenda items that they have as a one, and that is they're talking about the caste and Hindutva as the topic number three that they have, and the other topic they have is Hindutva and healthcare. Okay, so why do you think they've picked these topics? I'll give you my rationale. They pick Hindutva and healthcare because they now see that the Hindu-ness in healthcare is getting acceptance, or Hindu thought in healthcare, the holistic treating of a human being when it comes to health is taking roots across the world. Even in uh, you know in a state like Alabama, they have to now, because of the demands of the public, they're now allowing yoga in school. I read the newspapers from some of the Islamic countries. Yoga is catching hold. Ayurveda is now well accepted. And uh, pranayam, for example, is being sold as systemic rhythmic breathing, and there's so many health advantages to that, that around the world people are accepting pranayam. People are accepting people are accepting every facet. Meditation is now accepted as mindfulness. So the Hindu thought is accepted everywhere. Vegetarianism, the ahimsa part of Hindu dharma, is now gaining so much venture capital that there are companies like Impossible and Beyond, and all of them are now become are the fastest growing segments of the food industry, the vegan food. So compassion towards animals. So that every aspect of global life is now gaining influence. How do you tear that down? You tear that down by calling that Hindutva and maligning it.
No, no, no. Wait,
The
wait, wait.
same with caste. Utsala, once again, I'll just finish the one last thought on this. On caste, the reason caste is because you see that the CEOs of Microsoft and Adobe and Google and a whole bunch of other companies sitting in Silicon Valley, in Bay Area, are run by people who are Hindus. How do you tear it down? By creating the caste boogie. So to tear Hindus down, they have to have this link to Hindutva and malign Hindutva, and then tear these people down. Sorry, Utsada, I didn't mean to cut you off. Please go ahead.
So I I agree with the second aspect. I agree why they want to use the caste as a fault line to inject it into societies where Hindus are successful, and the caste narrative doesn't exist, like many of the Western societies where Hindus have immigrated. They want to inject it there so that they can create a fault line and then use that fault line to target the entire Hindu community and eventually break it apart. And they might succeed if we do not stand up to it. But I
Yeah,
disagree with the first point that you made, that they want to connect the positive aspects of Hindutva, that is about sustainability, that is about compassion, that is about health, mindfulness and health. They don't want to tear those things down. That's the part I disagree with you on. They don't want Hindus to be able to connect to it. So the reason they are not against yoga, they are not against Ayurveda, they are not against pranayam, they are not against, they are in favor of all of those things. What they are against is that you and this much of the world is actually associating it with Hindu dharma, because
right,
that,
right. That's you're right. You're
yeah,
absolutely right.
they
That's what I
love
meant
yoga.
to say.
They
It
love
didn't quite
yoga,
come out that way, but you're absolutely right.
but they want to project yoga as a Prussian and British colonial calisthenics exercise.
Yeah,
So that's the part that
and then
tells
they want to call the numerals Arab numerals.
Arabic. So they are perfectly fine with all these wonderful things that exist in this world. They just don't want Hindus to get any connection, or, for lack of a better phrase, credit for it, because then Hindus will stand up as a civilizational entity. Then Hindus will, who talk about Hindutva, will suddenly be validated as legitimate humans with civilizational track records. How will that help the Islamist in conquering and perpetuating Ghazwa-e Hind? It won't. It will actually question their own heritage. How will
Yeah,
that help the Maoist who wants to bring a revolution in the Indian subcontinent and turn it into another Cambodia with millions of people dead? So
yeah,
that is why they'd want to disconnect uh, yoga and all these historically wonderful things from Hindu-ness. And
yeah,
they really hate it when every time somebody talks about, one of the things that the reason they hate Prime Minister Narendra Modi is because the United Nations recognized World Yoga Day on 21st June, because you saw capital cities around the
yeah,
world where Hindus and non-Hindus and people from all color, people from all background, people from all ethnicities sitting together and doing yoga, and Narendra Modi getting to address them. How can that happen? That is completely against the devil incarnate wearing a khaki chaddi with a Hitler's mustache painted on it in Photoshop. How that's the challenge that these guys have to deal with, and that's why they're so upset. That's why they have to do an event on September 11th.
So that if I were advising them, they actually missed a topic, that is environmentalism and environmentalism, or climate change and Hindutva, because that would have been another losing proposition for them, because even in Vairagya Shakta, uh, you know Bharadhari has stanzas on environmentalism, and they say, "Oh earth, my mother, father air, comrade light, good kingsman water, and brother sky, to all of you I fold my hands in final homage. Your company gave me benefits and spread the wisdom pure within. All illusions are now gone, and I merge into the ultimate. Dharti Mata, and worshipping the environment and taking care of nature for future generations, and respecting Mother Earth are integral to Hindu Dharma." So I don't know why they missed out on climate change, because I've definitely seen articles that say how Hindutva is bad for climate change. And the same thing with go ahead.
Ajay, you can give them that topic. You just offered them a topic. Maybe they will include it. They'll have
I'm generous, so that
they have four
why
more
not?
days. They have 4 more days. They will figure out a way
The
to.
4 more days exactly. Uh,
If they can target Hindus on September 11th, they will be able to target Hindus on climate change as well, because
yeah,
it's
I'm sure
always.
that they've tried their best to link Hindus to September 11th. So
Yeah.
that I come back to uh, then they talk about Hindutva propaganda and digital ecosystem. I mean, come on, every social media company has is owned by people who are on the left of the ideological spectrum, and they can keep topics like that as much as they want. But I want to so that as we come towards the close, I want to say that we are winning.
Hold on, Ajay. Let me
Yeah,
comment on this a little bit. Again, the reason they don't like social media, Hindutva on social media, is because they are challenged there. See, the fact that what we are conversing, what we are sharing with our audience today, is being broadcast on YouTube, is being broadcast on Facebook. The fact that we were able to show a quote from Savarkar from his book about Hindutva that talks about the absolute truthfulness of the entire humanity being one, of humans being humans and nothing else, and everything else being artificial. The fact that that was a broadcast on Facebook, the fact that that was broadcast on YouTube, that is why they don't want us to be on social media. Because until now, they were able to write books, produce intellectual content that had only one,
own the newspapers,
own the newspapers, that
control
only
the newspapers. Yep, yep,
one
and
side of the
television
story.
stations,
Yeah, that had only one side of the story, and
and controlled academia, which is also changing.
you would be thrown out of the academia if you dare challenge them. That's the nature of fascism that they had exhibited, and they continue to exhibit much of that.
They continue to do that. Although it is slowly changing, and we are hoping that more changes will come in academia as well. So that I want to say this. Okay, so let me put all of this in perspective. So the people who are organizing it, ISI, what do the ISI want? ISI wants to break India. They want to finish the agenda that they had after they lost the East Bengal, and East Bengal became Bangladesh. They want to avenge that loss. That's what ISI wants. They
Okay,
want to
Ajay,
snatch away Kashmir from
before I
India.
go any
They want
further
to
on
break
ISI,
India
Ajay
as a
bhai,
way to get back.
before you go any further on ISI, let me tell you that you have to spend another night trying to protect the VHPA and Hindu Pact website because of the constant attacks that you will get online
That's right.
after you talk about this. So prepare
We,
yourselves to stay all night tomorrow again. Stay up all night. Just for
we're
context for
used to
our
it.
audiences, Ajay bhai in the past week has stayed up twice all night because of the constant attacks on our website that we have been facing once we started talking about the Chingari project, which is a project about the well-being and help that is needed to to support and talk about and educate people about the minor girls in Pakistan, especially in Sindh, of the Hindu community who are forcibly converted, more than 1,000 of them every year. Since that project went online, Ajay Bhai has already spent 2 nights trying to defend
That's
our
right.
website from getting hacked. So
And
carry on, Ajay.
more to
I just
come,
wanted to.
more to come.
I
The
Yeah.
the
Keep talking about
Yeah.
ISI. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Keep
there you
talking.
go. Exactly. And so, what do these CPI Marxist Leninists or urban Naxals, who are the extremist, violent leftists, what do they want? They want to build an intellectual base of allies. They want to align with the minority groups. They want to exploit the fault lines within the society. They want to violently overthrow the government. This is Utsauda, the Tukde Tukde gang. So the alliance between the Marxists and the ISI sponsored Islamists are the people who shout these slogans that we will break India into small pieces. Tukde Tukde kar denge, which is we'll break India into pieces. That was their slogan. Okay, that was their slogan.
Well,
The Kashmiri terrorists and sympathizers and Khalistani supporters, they just want to I feel very sad for Khalistani supporters, because really what they should be doing is concentrating on claiming Lahore, which was the seat of the empire that Maharaja Ranjit Singh built, where today Maharaja Ranjit Singh's statue gets vandalized every single time it is stood up, three times already. That is what they should be concentrating on. The millions of Sikhs had to leave, and thousands have suffered, millions had to leave during at one point in time. That is the one that you want to concentrate on, not talk about India, or
oh,
not talk about
hold on.
creating in the Indian state of Punjab.
Hold on. I want to say something about your description of the involvement of ISI as a prime driver of this event behind the scenes. ISI is Pakistan's intelligence service. In case people who are listening to us don't know, I think most of them know. The reason they are doing supporting this event is because the most powerful currency they used to have in the past was the currency of Islamists. Okay, they used that currency as much as they could and have overused it and has lost credibility on it. The only place where that currency still works is Afghanistan, and they have used it there. In India and in other parts of the world, because of the flurry of terror attacks in the last 20 years, perpetuated and perpetrated by the Islamists, Pakistani intelligence, ISI, has lost credibility on the Islamist front. So, if you noticed, after Article 370 was removed in Jammu and Kashmir, millions of dollars were poured in to create a counter narrative against India, specific to Kashmir. That didn't go anywhere. That didn't go anywhere because everybody who was doing it in the beginning was collected to Islamist groups. So they eventually they had to give up, and now they have to keep the Islamists in the back foot, in the back end. What they have now started doing is to use what works for them, which is the left academia in American universities, the left academy, the left in the American public space, and use the Indian Maoist Leninists, the violent left from India, and their vestiges in the Western uh, campuses and the Western public spaces, use them at the front end because they have acceptability in America. They have acceptability in Europe because of the local politics of these places. And that is also where they find a constructive convergence with the Chinese. So if you notice, there are places when these anti-CAA city council resolutions were happening. There were a couple of places where these were being promoted by Pakistanis of Pakistani Americans as the drivers. But there was at least one place where this was actually supported and promoted by Chinese Americans in the Bay Area. So there is some convergence that they are finding. So it's a convergence and convenience approach. The only tool left in the hands of the Pakistani ISI is to put forward the leftists in American space and their friends from the Indian academy who are violent leftists. So there's a distinction. The American left is not yet professionally violent. The Maoists, the Marxist Leninists in India are terrorists. They have been declared as such globally. They have killed hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people. in the last 20 years. 25,000 people have died in the last 20 years at their hands.
So I know I still think that this particular conference, despite of all the all the things that we have talked about of how these people want to tear down Hindu dharma and tear down global Hindu dharma, I think that Hindus are actually winning. Hindus are winning in the battlefield of ideas. Hindus are winning when it comes to the lifestyle that people want to adopt. Hindus are winning when it comes to environmentalism. The Hindu thoughts of sustainability is winning. The Hindu thought of democracy is winning. In every aspect, Hindu dharma and Hindu thought is winning around the world. The reason this conference is happening is there are people in this world who do not want the Hindu thought and the acceptance of thought, the acceptance of Hindu way of life to prevail. So I think that is why this conference is happening. And now with the united Hindu community rising up, united Hindu community rising up, Utsoda, I would say that is actually even more cause for celebration for Hindus, because Hindus can now see that they're not only were their thoughts winning, but now in the arena of public debate, there is a presence, there is a Hindu presence. It is not a one-sided media control, as you just mentioned. It's not one-sided control of narrative. It is a narrative that is now it is now being the negative narrative is now being countered by the positive narrative. And that so the we are just starting, and we already have hundreds of thousands of people actively participating across the world to counter to counter the anti-Hindu propaganda. Okay,
Well,
that I think is, and also I want to share this one comment that Ratan Shardaji wrote, and I hope you can read this. And Ratan Shardaji is saying, dismantling global Hindutva may end up providing Hindu proponents a better framework to dismantle left propaganda mills. It is time to end their 7 decade old propaganda against last surviving bastion of peaceful society, last surviving bastion of a peaceful society that respects diversity, which alone can promote peace globally. World today needs Hinduness or Hindutva to survive and not thrive, not the Talibanized left. A well-known journalist, Ratan Shardaji, just wrote this recently on News Bharti.
yes, and Ajay bhai, I just want to revisit the whole reason why this dismantling Hindutva conference has benefited Hindutva more than the people who are organizing it. I just want to revisit it once more. I think the reason it has benefited in because it has given the opportunity for Hindutva people around the world to expose the organizers and the people behind this event and to bring about a connection, a web. So basically, now they just opened their door and let everybody in to their room of propaganda and daggers and mirrors, and everybody can see it now. So it was a big mistake, strategic mistake on their side, because these guys have been doing this for the last 20 years that I can recall. Many of these people, if you see the 900 or so signatures that they have collected globally in support of their event, from mostly from academics, uh, they all have been doing this for the last 20 years in different places, different platforms, different causes, all targeting Hindus. What this particular event has done is it has brought them all under one umbrella, and now everybody can see them for the propaganda that they are doing. It has woken up the Hindutva people, Hindutva supporters around the world, and now they are trying to catch up. So you will see that there is a briefing that these guys calling it a congressional briefing that they arranged on 8th of September. They are scrambling for attention at this point, and now they are just doing things randomly, event after event, because they realize that they ate more than they could chew. And I think this is a wonderful challenge opportunity for the Hindu community around the world to take up the horse by its rein, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, and ascend to this occasion and share with the world what Hindutva really means. Share with the world what threats we are facing and how we can come together as humanity, as Savarkar put it, to defeat it. And at the end of this all, I believe that if we Hindus keep this trajectory of the way we are working hard to create awareness and doing self-realization at the same time, I think we will come out of this as a dominant global force. So we may the other side, the dismantling global Hindutva conference folks have actually helped us make Hindutva global. So we thank you for doing this. Keep hitting us, and you will see how quickly you are exposed.
Absolutely. So I could not, I mean, I think, and just, overall, I think the Hindu advocacy in America has, really gone to the next phase. We should really be thankful to the people who have been organizing this particular conference, not because they're maligning Hindu Dharma, but they don't know what, uh, what a sleeping giant they have awakened. And this is going to be in next this is the response to this event is really going to be something that will sustain the Hindutva movement in America and in the West for next 50 years.
Not just that, it
Also
will
that
bring entire humanity under the. It will let humanity know what Hindutva truly means. And I want to bring in two examples from past to, to fortify this narrative, this fortify this argument. They lied and created propaganda against the Ram temple in Ayodhya. What happened? They empowered the Hindus to eventually build it within the next 3 decades. Okay, they went and targeted India's current Prime Minister Narendra Modi when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat with a flurry of false narrative, pure hate. When what did that lead to? From the Chief Minister of three-time Chief Minister of Gujarat, or was it four-time? I don't remember. He became the first Prime Minister of India that didn't need external support to put together his government. And then he won a re-election because of the same hate that these guys have been producing. So let me, I just want to put it out there. If they keep targeting Hindus the way they are targeting right now, they are going to create a whole generation of Hindus that will be empowering not just Hindus, not just people from the Indian subcontinent, but the entire world into ushering in a global Hindutva movement. And that I think is something that they're going to help us do. We thank them for that.
we absolutely thank them for doing this conference. So that need to move on to the next segment of our show. This is, as usual, a great conversation. Here is the next segment.
मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं वचसा सततं वदनीयं मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं वचसा सततं वदनीयं लोकहितं.
Usada, for the Hindu Seva Act of the Week, I nominate actually Hindu Pact this time because Usada, we do a lot. We are doing a lot of advocacy movement. We are trying to set up an office, a virtual office, but with presence in Washington D.C. We are trying to create a lot of videos and infographics and fighting off the attacks on our servers from hostile people and all of that. And so all of these things cost money. And I would, today I want to nominate Hindu Pact ourselves actually for the Hindu Seva Act of the Week. And please go to hindupact.org/donate and help Hindu Pact continue this fight for Hindu advocacy. We are a 501c. We are part of World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA. It's a non-profit 501c. Donations are tax deductible. Please support the Hindu advocacy in America by going to hindupact.org/donate. So that with that we go to the next segment, and that is the Hindu good news of the week. So that there is never it's always hard to find, but there's always some good news, right? And so that I don't know if we have the slide on it, but maybe you can talk about it. I thought we had a slide on it.
I think we did have a slide. I saved a slide yesterday night, but then I don't have access to the computer, so I don't know. So
Yeah, but there's actually there might let me see. Hold on. There are a couple of good news. So why don't we start?
I,
Uh,
I will just. I
uh,
think we should just do. Ajay bhai, we
I
are
think we can. I have it. I got this slide, Utsoda. I have this slide. All right,
okay.
I
We,
got
we
this
are
slide.
we are we are a little
Yeah,
overtime.
it was just not refreshed enough. So here we go. The Hindu good news of the week, as a courtesy Utsoda. Uh,
Yeah.
Utsoda,
So
do you need a music or a drum roll, or you just need
no,
it
no,
to
no.
roll
Just
out?
I'm just gonna look at the slide on the screen
Here
and
we
the.
go. Here is the. Utsoda, you have to have music. You cannot not have music. This is good news, and we don't have that many good news, so we have to have a drum roll or something or the other before we reveal the good news. All right, Utsoda, talk to us about the Hindu good news of the week.
Yes. I still don't see the slide on the screen, but it takes me a while.
It is there. It is there. Don't worry. It is there.
So, for the first time in many years, the city of Srinagar in Jammu and Kashmir, which is the capital of Jammu and Kashmir, at least the summer capital, uh, had a Janmashtami procession. And the Janmashtami procession ended at Lal Chowk, which just a few years ago, you could not even put the Indian flag there. That's how much control and influence the radical Islamists used to have in Lal Chowk in Srinagar. But thankfully, this year we see the Janmashtami procession there. So the photograph that you see here is at the Lal Chowk in Jammu and Kashmir. You can see the clock tower in the background. So that's a very, very refreshing, very, very positive event for the Hindu community. Um, the people who are hosting the Dismantling Hindutva conference, it's a sad news for them. It's a sad news for one of their speaker, Muhammad Junaid, who is a rabid anti-Hindu activist and anti-India activist when it comes to Jammu and Kashmir. So maybe Muhammad Junaid can talk about it in the Dismantling Hindutva conference. But for
There you
now,
go. It is good news, so we need some cheer. And
sure. And yeah, so maybe this is something that the Dismantling Hindutva conference can ask, have Muhammad Junaid, their speaker, talk about. So this
and this
should
is
be.
what Mohammed Junaid is doing. This is Mohammed Junaid's reaction to this.
And if you want to know more about many of these people, we do have two shows in the past 2 weeks, that we talked about many of these characters. If you find them, if you think what we're discussing is interesting, so please do visit those two shows.
And so that final segment, the most anticipated segment of Hindu Lounge, and that is the Hindu phobe or the Hindu hater, Hindu phobe of the week. Utsada, here's a drum roll for the Hindu phobe of the week. I think Utsada, this time we have two. So I have nominated one and you have nominated one, and there was a fierce competition between the two. So we decided to put both of them. So the Hindu phobe of the week number one, Utsada, I nominate, and I should put the our pictures down so people can read the whole thing. I nominate Javed Akhtar, who is a screenplay writer and in the Bollywood movies, and Shabana Azmi's husband, another leftist. If you want to see the connection, now what he says, Javed Akhtar says, is that just like Taliban want an Islamic state, there are those who want Hindu Rashtra. Now, so that remember, Hindu Rashtra is democracy. Rigveda's 9 stanzas on democracy. People at at the Kabul airport in Afghanistan, wanting to leave Afghanistan is what Islamic State looks like. These are the people who all wanted Sharia law. 99% of them, as per Pew Research. and he is equating Hindu Rashtra with Islamic State. People are of the same mindset, be it Muslim, Christian, Jews, or Hindus. Obviously not. Go read Rigveda. Go read the other shastras that followed. Go read the history of India, where even during the Chanakya has written about the democratic rule. There, democracy existed in India. The kings not only had rights, but kings had duties. Even when there was even there was
But you
monarchy,
cannot convince
they were
these
duty
people with,
bound.
you cannot convince these people with
But you
what.
cannot convince, of course. And of course, the Taliban is barbaric and their actions are reprehensible, but those supporting RSS, BHP, Banjagal are all the same. Utsoda, I have not seen the kind of atrocities that Taliban committed in Syria. I've
No,
not
no, no,
seen the
not in
kind of
Syria. Taliban is
atrocities
not
that
in
Boko
Syria.
Haram is doing against Nigerians, their own people, or in
Again,
Afghanistan.
Taliban is in Afghanistan. ISIS is in Syria. So
No,
just
I said Islamic State. I was talking about just the because he's talking about Taliban and he's generalizing Taliban, Islamic State. So I'm just talking about he because what he's saying is that the people who want the Islamic rule are the same as people who are as barbaric as people who want the Hindu state. So I'm clubbing the Taliban, the Boko Haram, and the ISIS into the same category
so this is a
for his benefit.
this is a textbook case of strawman fallacy. Okay, so what you do with strawman fallacy is you create an artificial bogey and stab it, and stab it as much as you want, and then use that to target the real target. So what many people like people like Javed Akhtar love to do is to use strawman fallacy as much as they can, because they in that way they don't have to talk about facts. They create this artificial bogey, and they will just compare the bogey and talk to you. Javed Akhtar.
But look, yeah, but look what he says. He also said that he has total faith in the basic sensibility of an average Indian. The majority of this nation is extremely decent and tolerant. That must be respected. India will never become a Talibani country.
Yeah, but
Javed
India
Akhtar,
has become a
do you
Hinduphobic.
know why? Do you know why? Because 82% of the people are still Hindu in India. The day that balance shifts, the average Indian will no longer be a tolerant Hindu. The average Indian would have changed from Hindu to more a uh, intolerant reflection of its counterparts in Bangladesh and Pakistan and Afghanistan and other parts of the world. That is why India will not become a Talibani country, because there is a resolute
and then
Indian
and then
who is
Javed
a
Akhtar will,
Hindu.
and then
Right.
Javed Akhtar will be hanging from a plane and trying to get to a Western country and seek refuge.
Exactly. He'll be hanging from the the wing of a plane. The average Hindu is resolute. Average Indian is a resolute Hindu who will not let it become Talibani country, because the average Hindu also believes in democracy as and believes in Rigveda, which talks about democracy. It talks about dharma, and it talks about Hindutva. It is the reason India will not become a Talibani country is because people in India believe in Hindutva. But Javed Akhtar, who is soft peddling his communist Islamic ideology, will not get this. Or if he gets it, he'll just ignore it.
Kechish, man.
So the second Hinduphobe of the day is someone that you picked. So there we go. The Hinduphobe of the day number two. Usada, let's give you some drum roll here. All right.
Okay, bhai, that's a lot of drum rolls.
Because you picked one. Go ahead. This is not Javed Akhtar. I need to delete this. This has nothing to do with Javed Akhtar.
So
All right.
yeah, this is, yeah. I don't know. It stayed there.
Very good. There we go. Easy to fix.
So this is so sad. Uh,
Who are we talking about here? There's no name here.
we are talking about Priyamvada Gopal, and Priyamvada Gopal is a professor, is a faculty at Cambridge University. She's a strong advocate and promoter of the Dismantle Hindutva conference that that we are discussing today. for the third time, she actually wrote a tweet in which she says that Hindus should be banned from coming to Western countries and all their H1 visas should be taken off. That's the level of hatred she has against Hindus. So in the recent past, she compared, and the photograph that you see is a somber memorial uh, at the Jallianwala Bagh for the Hindus, Sikhs, and other Indians who were killed by the British, after, in 1919, I believe, and hundreds of people were massacred. And this is a memorial in honor of those victims. But Priyamvada Gopal compared it, and I'm going to just quote her here, to a whale penis. And you know the level of hate and dishonor and just crassness that this Cambridge University faculty has just shows the level of, it is just amazing that these people actually still have a job. And that is something that we in the Hindutva community around the world have to really come up with solutions for. Like, how do we get these people deplatformed from positions of power? Because we are actually still being colonized with people who have so much hate against us. So, Priyamvada Gopal is the Hindu hater of the week, second Hindu hater of the week. I believe that her comparing the Jallianwala Bagh memorial uh, flame, it's a stone monument, it looks like the flame, uh, in honor of the hundreds of people who were killed by the British, many Sikhs, many Hindus, some Muslims, from all parts, all over India. Uh, and to compare that to the Wales is just crass. It just shows the deep-rooted hatred they have for their own people. Uh, there's no better example of a colonized mind that is full of hate than what the Gopal.
Absolutely. So that with that, we come to the end of the great conversation today. I want to thank everyone who joined today. There were a lot of people who, lot of people who had joined, and Utsada, you were having some audio difficulty, but I just want to let Rashmi ji, who pointed out, tell her that today Utsada was a little bit technically challenged. He had to use, his wife's laptop because it was not his, didn't come up, and there were some problems. So, but thanks for bearing with us. I thank everyone for joining. This is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you
I
by Hindu
just
Pact.
want to point out, Ajay bhai, I just want to
Yeah,
point. Last night we had a debate that we want to finish our shows in 1.5 hour, less than we wanted to finish it in an hour, but we have so much to talk about, we have so much material to discuss that we end up talking for more than an hour. And yesterday night I had told Ajay, we are going to be still talking for more than 1.5 hours, and we have been
that's
talking.
because Utsada, after you went to sleep, I stayed up another hour and got more material.
I am telling you, Ajay, we should not have so much material to discuss. We should
I,
cut down on the.
it is all fun, Utsada. It's all fun. We are enjoying this. I want to thank everyone for joining Hindu Lounge, but please don't go away. Again, for this episode, we have a special music, special tune created just for this episode of Hindu Lounge by Decibels, our music partners, and they're so diligent. Every Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or so, between 2 and 4, we get this new tune that they work all for 2 days. They work to bring up a new music tune just for this episode of Hindu Lounge. So once again, thank you everyone for joining. This is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pact. Hindu Pact is the policy research and advocacy initiative of World Hindu Council of America. We come live every week on Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern. That is 8 o'clock Pacific. We talk about contemporary American Hindu issues. Utsoda with me is Utsav Chakrabarti. He is the executive director of Hindu Pact and now a well recognized intellectual on Clubhouse and everywhere else. Please join us on Clubhouse, join him and occasionally me maybe on Clubhouse. We have a club called Hindu Lounge. You can join us over there on Clubhouse. And I am Ajay Shah. I'm the president of World Hindu Council of America. Thank you for joining. Please support the Hindu advocacy in America and listen to this awesome tune that was created for just this episode of Hindu Lounge by Decibels. Thank you, Soda. Thanks for joining. And once again, on to Decibel and the special tune created for this episode of Hindu Lounge.